Good evening. Welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance regular hybrid meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 14th. It is 5:31. And I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to just point out that Board of Finance member Richard Steele has called into the meeting and is present as well. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I just wanted to point out that it wasn't, the agenda says July 17th, but it was July 10th that we had the meeting. So.
Okay, move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Finance on July 10th, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes or comments? Not. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So, for the minutes, make note that I couldn't hear whether Richard said aye or not.
Yes, I said aye.
Okay,
There we go.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next is delegations, where members of the public could address the Board of Finance on items that are on the agenda, seeing that there's no one besides Richard calling in and no one here in the audience. We'll move on to reports. First from our first selectman, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you. Just a couple of things tonight. There we go. Oh, good. All right. Thank you. So we have a couple of items tonight I want to mention. As you've seen in the paper, we did start the process of forming a fair rent commission in East Lyme. We held an emergency meeting last week where the Board of Selectmen advanced the draft of the Fair Rent Commission ordinance to a public hearing, and that'll be on the 20th, I believe, next Tuesday. And at that time, public will be able to make comments about it, and after that, if the Board of Selectmen sees fit, they can enact it as an ordinance, and then it'll be published, and then after that, probably, I think by August 31st, if it gets passed and published in time, it'll be law by the 31st. It'll be an active ordinance by August 31st. So we'll see if all the timing, goes the way we hope it will.
And assuming that it does pass and go forward, it seems like most.
We'll have to appoint members to it. We can't do that until it's actually an ordinance. Mm-hmm. And so we're already giving some thought as to what would be, who would be appropriate and would have an interest in serving on such a commission.
And if there's members of the audience who see this and they are interested,
Reach out.
To
They can
you.
reach out to me, and then I'll pass it along to the Board of Selectmen, and we will consider those individuals that have an interest.
Great.
And we'll move forward. The other item is that the IAFF contract was fully ratified and signed, so that is in place now, and it's on file with the town clerk. So we're very happy that both sides were able to come together, it acted in good faith, and now we have a new contract. So I'm very happy about that. That's about it for me for tonight.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, reports from our finance director, Mr. Gervais.
All right, so we have a number of items to discuss tonight. There's a lot of worksheets that were passed out today. So we'll get those uploaded to the website under the reports tab under the Board of Finance page. But we were putting some of these together literally this afternoon, and some of these still have a few revisions that are needed. So once those are finalized, we'll get those on the website. So going through the overview of what we're going to talk about tonight, our bond anticipation results, what we got for an interest rate, finance projects, just keeping you apprised of what we're doing in the office, budget versus actuals, revenues, expenditures for 24, audit updates for 22, 23, and also 24. So our bond anticipation notes closed last week. The coupon rate was 4.1, but the yield, the effective yield I think it's called, is 3.5. So we did not go out to bond this year. This is strictly a loan for a year to borrow the money. We're going to pay approximately $800,000 to borrow that money, and then next year we'll look to bond the majority of the projects that have been completed. So just the reason I snipped this is so when we look at our 26 debt service, we're going to be adding $800,000 of interest to that, right? And that wasn't 1 year. This is accumulation of a few years worth of capital projects that have been kind of rolling over between bonds and bans. Last year we did a combination of both. This year, since there was only about $2 million to bond, it was just cheaper to throw it all into a ban. So that was the advice of our financial advisors. So 3.5 yield. We're looking to take this and bond it next year. So anyone have any questions? I believe I sent you all should have our offering statement, a little booklet that was put together by Oppenheimer, who helped us. So if you have any questions there, please send me an email and I will work with our financial advisors to get you guys an answer. All right, finance department projects. The biggest project in the finance office right now is implementing a new enterprise resource platform. Oh, hold on, mine's just texting me. You forgot to start YouTube live stream. You did, okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mines, for checking on our IT support back at home. So our Munis, we went live with the budgeting, AP, AR, and pretty much everything except HR and payroll. That went live July 1st, so about a month ago or so. It's had a few hiccups, implementing an entire new accounting software, but we're starting to get our stride. Initially, our first implementer told us you'll need 6 months to do the AP/AR implementation, 6 months to do budgeting and payroll. We're now halfway through August, and Munis yesterday put an implementer, a project manager, on the case. So if you do 6 months from August 15th, we're looking at like a February date. That's not very conducive for 941s, payroll reporting, things like that. So in best case scenario, April 1st, more than likely July 1st, right? And that also puts utility billing into a little bit of a, up in the air. Okay, well, are we going to implement two at once? It's two different teams, working on it. So status is still to be determined for utility billing. So our goal is to go live July 1, 2025 with HR payroll. Something I don't think I mentioned in the slide deck, but something that needs to be brought up. We paid for a time and attendance system called NovaTime. I believe 2019 we signed that agreement. We had a 5-year contract. I just got an email the other day saying they're sunsetting the product. We just went live with it February of 23. So they're going to give us a couple years, which is nice because I don't want to implement something else again. But so now we're going to explore all the payroll and time and attendance portions of that. It's not going to affect, when we say HR and payroll, this is really like, employee records and actually the processing of payroll. The time and attendance portion is through a separate vendor, which we're going to, look at in the next year or so, or in the next couple months before budget season. So it's always something. Budget versus actual revenues. We budgeted just shy of $86 million. We had a really good collection. This says $85 million. It's going to be a little higher than that. I've got a few firefighter reimbursements, animal control reimbursements, things like that from other municipalities where we split with them. Big dollars. I think the East Lyme Ambulance Fund, it's about over $100,000 in accounts receivable I've got to put in, as well as a good chunk from Waterford for the shared animal control office. So that number is going to climb even higher. And while you look at it, you say, okay, we budgeted 86, we brought in 85, but we used $2 million of fund balance to plug that year. So the fact that we're going to use less than $1 million, to me, is a really, we preserved our fund balance there a little bit. So we'll have a more detailed report of this once we officially close 24. The goal was to close it tomorrow. We just got a stack of invoices that came in the mail this week. So by next meeting, September 11th, maybe I think it is, because I think the 12th is a Thursday. So I think September 11th we'll have a better grasp of final unaudited revenues, right? They'll all be in. So some of these numbers look great. Building permits, I mean, damn near doubled it. A few different things happening there. Interest income was really high. We were really proud of that. Conveyance taxes in the town clerk's office. I know the question might come up. So Windward Village that sold, we received $21,000 of conveyance taxes. So I knew that question was probably coming up at some point. So $8.4 million, the town gets $21,000. So state of Connecticut got over $100,000, but I digress. Budget versus actuals expenditures. You have a copy of that in front of you. If you guys want to dig through that. If you have any questions, everything looks pretty good. If any questions, we can kind of tie two things together. The accounts that were over budget, and mostly known, is the 24 budget transfers we'll talk about later on. But those are really the accounts that we had a little bit of some troubles with, some overages. We knew most of them, but we can discuss that. We'll get in further when that item comes up. Financial statements, 2022, we finalized that the last couple days there in June. We're really happy to get that off our plates and start right into 2023. The plan was for the auditors. We had a week. The auditors were going to be here July 15th. As some of you know, my mother-in-law passed away. So we kicked that, we're about a month behind schedule there on that one. And then once we're done with 23, we'll get right into 24. So I think I did. So I put the timeline in. I just brought everyone a copy of this. This is what I presented to the Municipal Finance Advisory Council today. So the State of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management, I believe it is, has a committee made up of town managers, town finance directors, people like that oversee municipalities that are late in filing their financial statements. This list here doesn't show it, but the list you have in front of you shows the history of the financial statements going back to 2013. That was the last time we filed the financial statement on time. So this is really ambitious, this current timeline. This timeline has shifted 1 month. So the auditors were supposed to come in 7:15. Now we're looking about 8:20. Maybe next week we can get them in here a day or two, or not work remotely and just start feeding them information. But we really had a lot of momentum built, and we just got to put the wind back in our sails here and get back to grinding. So so realistically, fiscal 24's audit, I imagine it'll be filed right around 3/31, March 31st. If we can do that, that means 25's audit will be caught up, right? Because 6/30/25, so we'll actually be prepared to start getting that 25 audit out on time, which hasn't happened in a decade and a half. So that'd be really good. So ongoing discussions, things that we collaboratively as the town need to work on, and I was working on last night a little bit with Dan, a coastal resiliency fund, collaboration between multiple departments, different boards. I was reading the town of Madison, which I think does a good job on some of their organization framework. And the capital committee actually has a small piece in looking at the funding of the coastal resiliency plan. which I thought was kind of interesting. So these are two things I really think the finance office, the town needs to work on. The capital committee, Dan and I were discussing this yesterday. We sent some ordinance proposals back and forth a little bit, looked at that. So hopefully this will come in the next, either the next Board of Selectmen meeting or the following one. It looks like a lot of capital improvement committees, they really start mid to late November, first meeting where they appoint a chair, and then they meet maybe a week later, and then they have about 7-8 meetings where they have 2 public hearings. So it's really just building the framework around, around that. So, and also something I thought was interesting, Madison, it appeared to me, does a 2-year capital improvement committee, or at least they approved the chair for 2 years. So, something to think about. Anyone have any questions?
Who would you think would comprise it, like in?
So Madison's plan that I like a lot has the most information online. They had 2 members of the Board of Finance, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, 2 members of the Board of Education. So that's 6 elected members. Each board appoints a non-elected citizen or resident of the town. So there's 6 elected officials and then 3 unelected officials, comprised of 9. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So that doesn't have to be our plan. That's just something when I looked at Madison, they seem to have a nice a grasp on the situation. So yeah,
I
that's
think it's a great idea.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when you're looking at $19 million of bond anticipation notes, right? And just in my research yesterday, I sent over, and just digging through the files I have, I found that 2019 facilities plan, or the capital improvement plan, I think some of those years had like $300,000 of capital projects. They thought the roof at the community center was going to be $200,000. We're at 1.4 million, so that was a 7x in 5 years. So costs are really inflating, right? And so we just need to get a handle on our assets and actually the age of the assets and when we actually need to fix these and maintain them. So we're gonna have some hard discussions ahead, but it has to happen. Next steps: close out and finalize 2023 audit. Like I said, the timeline shows November 15th, but realistically, it's probably end of December. Like a turnaround, that should be 24's audit. 24's audit, 25 has amended then. And then the other thing, RFP for the auditors, 2025 will be the final year of the contract. I believe it was signed in 2019 for 5 years. So that's a year out, but that's just something to keep in mind. And then, as I mentioned earlier, a time and attendance software, now that NovaTime has been bought out twice, and they're still going to honor the remainder of the contract, but once that's kaput, they want to pay, I think we have to pay $40,000 an implement fee if we want to get their new product. So I think if we're just going to pay $40,000, we should just look at a total new software, or RFP that out as well and see what we can get. So Immunis also has products, big dollars, so it's just something to keep in mind. With that, that's all I had. If anyone has any questions about that firefighter contract, I've got an executive summary I can send over. It's the highlights of, we got eliminated comp time, we increased health insurance 0.5% a year, the percentage increases of salaries and wages was less than 3% for all 3 fiscal years. We did put in a health stipend, gym stipend for the firefighters. They have to go annually for physicals. So as long as they show proof of a gym membership, they'll get $100 a quarter towards that gym membership. But I'll send that over.
Can we publish contracts on the website?
All union contracts are published on the town website under the Human Resources page, and there's a collective bargaining tab. And this was updated 2 days ago with the new contract. So if anyone wants to read the new contract or the old contracts, not the, we don't archive them on the website, they're in the town clerk's office, but current contracts for the administrative staff, the police, firemen, and there's one contract I'm forgetting, dispatchers. All the contracts are on our website.
Is there any change in the pension plan?
So our firemen are on a defined contribution plan with the exception of one who's grandfathered in. So 10 of the 11 firemen are already on a 401A plan. And there is an there was no changes to the retirement figures. There's one still in the pension. The 11, the 10 are not in the pension. They're in a 401A. So yeah, nothing's changed there.
The audit RFP you were talking about, that would be for the current year we're in, for the year ending 6/30/25.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So I know we just started this year, but 10 months from now,
Yeah, but
I don't want to scramble.
You know, there aren't a lot of firms that are doing municipal audits anymore, so
Correct.
I wouldn't let that go too far out.
Yep. And I don't know if I wasn't too apprised in the past if there was a committee, you guys a subcommittee, or if it was just communications between the two of us, and I couldn't
I
yeah.
wasn't here then.
Okay.
John?
So we could take that
Like-
offline. But just something to iron out. So. Just so I know, on here I had some tabs in my finance director's report. The one we didn't touch upon was there's two. ARPA, that'll be forthcoming. We did not get to touch ARPA this week, but the tax collection report, it's stapled backwards, thanks to our mailroom printer. But there's one report in particular. It's the balance sheet summary by year. It's on the back page of the first one. Balance sheet summary by year. Everyone have that?
Mm-hmm.
So this report just kind of walks through. So M is motor vehicle, P is personal property, R is real estate, and X is. I'm drawing a blank. It's not a big one. It's only 30,000 there. But when we go through motor vehicles, we collected 80%. Personal property 53%, and then real estate 51.5%. There was a request to ask for the 2020 last year's July tax collections just to compare them. They were pretty close. This year was trailing a little bit compared to last year. So I don't know if that's just a timing thing, because I ran this as of August 5th. But if you think about it, it's going to take a couple days for them to submit their deposits to the finance office and have them input. Whereas when I did a snapshot looking backwards, we had a year, where that was already in there. So that could play a little role in it. So what I'm going to do is later next week, when my AR specialist is caught up, rerun these numbers and see exactly if they still jive. So they may change. They may kind of come up a little higher and match what we did last year, but I don't think it's going to, couple $1 million. It's a couple $100,000 if anything. So.
But then this year, I think the month ended on weekend, so I think we got
An extra day,
people were
maybe.
able to pay on August 1st, I believe. Or
Correct.
so
Correct.
that
Yep.
I think it's probably just timing.
Yep. So.
And the timing, I think, can play a role for the fall.
So. Yeah.
Some people always wait till the last moment.
Lines out the door. Line out the door. A lot of people thought it was, I think, 7/29. I think was that Friday, if I'm not mistaken. But those last couple days, there was a line, you couldn't get in the assessor's office. So I guess not many people are familiar with that bill pay online function.
Yeah, and
But,
then it just has to be postmarked by
Yeah. Yeah.
so
But
it's-
people really like coming and seeing the tax collectors, So with that, that's the end of my report.
Okay. Next on the agenda is new business. And first is the fiscal year 2024 budget transfers. I don't know, Kevin, do you want to just
Yeah, which one?
walk us?
24. Okay. So Some of these are payroll related, year end, whether there was an adjustment to the salaries or whether there was 2 employees working the job, or whatever the issue was. For like the very first one, the first selectman there, that was my little snafu. I budgeted 5% of the first selectman's salary, sorry Dan, to go towards water and sewer. Well, I never informed water and sewer of that change. So just little things like that. Some of them are just errors that we've caught throughout the time. But so some of the big ticket items here, I just want to go over the staff accountant in the finance office. The title of that line is staff accountant. That is really my deputy finance director. I had 2 of those last year. And I also had Renee Fecto, my senior accountant, who's been trying to retire for 3 years now. She works about 8 to 12 hours a month. So she's in very rarely. She helps with some reconciliations, especially she loves the tax collector reconciliations. So that account's a little high. We don't anticipate that being the same next year. A little further down, the large ones, dispatchers. There's been quite a turnover in dispatch. So when one person leaves, we try to hire another, backfill that person. So there's on-the-job training. That's been a kind of an issue over there. The big one for dispatch is overtime. If you see, we had to plug $58,000 for overtime at dispatch. We knew about that pretty early on, and that was the result of a union contract change where one sentence, part-time dispatchers get first right of refusal. On open shifts, changed to full-time dispatchers get first right of refusal. That completely decimated the overtime line. Pretty much every shift was picked up by a full-timer. And so very rarely did we have part-timers working, and that balloon, instead of having a part-timer at, $20-something an hour, we're paying a dispatcher time and a half, right? So it was upwards of 30, high 30s, as opposed to someone in mid-20s. So that had a dramatic effect. We've addressed that in the fiscal 25 budget. We pretty much doubled that overtime line.
And do we have plans for the next contract to?
Well, we've learned. So because of that, when we just had this International Association of Firefighters contract, that was a point of debate, discussion, whatever you want to call that, where open shifts, so we were cognizant of that going into that, and so the verbiage we used in the firefighter contracts, and someone can check the website, but to the best of my knowledge, first open shift goes to part-timers because there's 4 career guys on. If 2 career guys are out at a time, the first shift is a part-timer, second shift goes full-time. So they do have some ability to get that overtime if there's 2 open shifts in a given tour or shift, whatever it is. But I don't think it'll have the kind of impact this did. And just to let everyone know, the deputy chief and the chief meet with me. Right now we've been doing bi-weekly, so we've met 3 times already to go over their payroll to make sure that they're going to be able, when June comes, I don't want to say, okay, we're $250,000 over. Right now, we're about $5,000 under budget annualized, right? Not a so it's close. It's a $1.9 million budget overall. We're at like 1.895 if we maintain the current level we're at now. So we're really monitoring it. We don't want to blow that line. So we're really trying to monitor and be careful of how many people we're putting on a shift and things like that. The largest one, police officers. So the majority of that, there's something really weird that happened. Not weird, but union contract again. Police officers get paid holiday pay in a check at the end of the year. So budget was looking great, and then we have to pay, I believe it was $100,000 in holiday pay. It's in their contract. I should have known about it. Just one of those things just kind of slips through the cracks. So that was the majority of that overage there. There was a slight police overtime expense as well for $27,000, but the majority of it was the holiday pay. I was not expecting that the last pay period of the year. And when I looked at my budget, it was a budget buster. But luckily, Not in the police line. The police did turn over quite a bit of money in other lines. So I will say, it wasn't like they just went over $125,000 overall. I'll just flip through real quick because I want to give them credit where credit is due. They did a good job. They did try to save throughout the year on their other items.
So while you're looking for that, just so I understand.
Yep.
Are you saying, like, 4th of July, they don't get a holiday pay? All of their holidays are
It's a
all
regular day
paid
for
out?
them. So if they work like the 4th of July, how I interpret it and how if any of the police officers are watching, you can always check me tomorrow. But how I interpret it is a holiday to them is a normal day. So they're getting, if they're working, it's an 8-hour day, they're getting the 8 hours, but they're banking 8 hours of holiday pay or 12 hours. I can't remember if it's time and a half or not, but they bank that. So 13 holidays times 8 hours, or if it's maybe even 12 hours, I don't know off the top of my head, times 30 police officers. That's like 2 cops in itself worth of time. It's like 3,000 hours. A normal cop works 2,000 hours, right? So that was just something we didn't calculate in budget season. So, the police, $90,000, $89,053 in other lines they returned. So while they needed $125,000 for that police officer line, all the other lines they brought back $89,000.
Well, I guess we could look at it that we were holding on to their money and investing it.
Correct. Well, we don't tell them that.
Oh,
Yeah, we're just holding on to it for you
Yeah.
guys. Because then tomorrow they'll come and say they want the 5% interest. So we won't bring that part up. Some other ones to discuss. Overtime at the fire department. 217, I believe, is Niantic, although really just became one pool of money at the end there. So while it looks like it's an $85,000 overage for overtime, if we look to the right side of the paper, right, you see about 8 or 9 accounts. You'll notice part-time firemen in that 217 account, they returned $67,000. So while they used $85,000 of overtime in that line, they returned $67,000, right? So really, a lot of this came down to the accounting system we have. It's a little antiquated. Really, like with the police needed $125,000 for that police officer line. Realistically, what I would have loved to have been able to do was clear out all those other funds of the $89,000 they had left, and just say, okay, they needed $35,000 in the police line. Our system would not let me pull out that $89,000 because it puts a little warning up, says these accounts are over budget. So I have to pull it from somewhere else. So that's why you see some of these I pulled from payroll contingency, FICA and Medicare we had a little bit left, the retirement liability we had some left, that part-time firefighter line, as well as pension retirement expense. So some of those lines we were able to realize some savings, and we used that to offset this. So we had money left over. We still have money left over. It's just a matter of paying the rest of these bills and seeing where we land. But it's at least a couple $100,000. I know at least of $250,000. So on the expense side, on the revenue side, we're gonna have to borrow fund balance a little bit. But if you net those together, we might approach only using about $500,000 of fund balance at the end of the day. So it's just a matter of clearing everything out, seeing where everything lies. So does anyone have any questions?
good.
Okay, I'd like to move that we accept the transfer as presented in the amount of $523,343.55.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And Richard? Trying to say
Let me just,
Richard, are you on mute?
Just make sure.
Not, can you hear me?
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
So just,
Yes. Aye.
great. So the motion carries
5-0.
5-0-0.
Just in case it doesn't record.
Right. Next, Under new business is fiscal year 2025 budget transfers. I don't know.
Do you do the motion first, or do I talk about it first? I can't remember.
I think we can discuss, yeah,
Okay.
just give us the
Okay.
discussion.
So what we're doing here is transferring $50,000 out of our contingency to fund, to transfer into public safety legal services. The legal service line, I actually cut it year over year. We just got done with our last, public safety negotiations. So we only had $12,000, which is about $1,000 a month in legal services. Right now, like the legal bill we just got was for $943. So what we'd like to do, we're proposing to transfer $50,000 from contingency to the legal service line. Anything you'd like to add, Dan? Sorry, I sound like I stopped mid-sentence there.
No, it just, we need to have that contingency available. Not quite sure what the future's gonna hold for us with legal fees, so we want to be prepared.
And I know one of the things I kind of had spoken to Kevin about was, have we tried to get our arms around what some of those legal expenses will be, in the different line items, and maybe we can drill down on this a little bit more.
Yeah, and we'll have a better handle. I think, a month from now, we'll have a better sense of what some of those fees will be. Right now, I wouldn't want to predict.
Okay.
The current services, are they comparable to what the state police would have charged us for that investigation?
State police would have been free,
Okay. So,
but there's a component that, that either way we would have had to pay for, whether state police carried on the investigation or private law firm go forward with it. So there's two components. One is employment law negotiation, which is one firm, and then investigative services, which is another firm. So we're not sure how it's going to balance out.
okay, I'd like to make a motion to move $50,000 from year ending or fiscal year 2025 town contingency to the public safety legal services account.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Does anyone have any further questions or discussion? No? All those in favor of the budget transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And Rich, I didn't hear you.
Yes, I said aye.
Okay, great. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is public discussion. There's no public here, so we'll move on to board comments. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to share? My only comment, wanted to make sure you know that Mitch did a great job last meeting. But also, I'd love to see this material posted. I think we got the June material up on the website, but I know you've got a lot going on there, but to the extent we can make that happen, that would be great. All right. Anyone?
Move we adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.